Exploration. Going out, searching, learning about something or somewhere new. We focused on these questions. How does perspective play a role in conflict? And how does conflict produce change? What we're really trying to understand here are these concepts of perspective, conflict, and change. And this will guide us as we begin our exploration. To do this, we are going to need to read to notice instead of read to finish. We'll need to think about when we're reading, what are we looking for? And what do we want to find out? And so let's get started with our journey into exploration. If you go to the class website, you'll see that on the left-hand side there is a page for social studies resources. If you click there, there is a link to our exploration learning. If you click there, that site will open up and you're ready to get started. Now, we actually looked at this first page already and we met Vector. And so we are going to be ready to examine exploration.
Welcome to our first challenge. For this challenge, you will have some choices to make. It is important to remember that the choices you make will become important later in your expedition. The challenge will require you to watch the video link below. The guides in the video will help you with the reading parts of the challenge. Select an area of exploration to learn about the Arctic, North America, or Mesoamerica and South America. You should talk to your survivor group to make sure your group will have someone who has learned about exploration in each region. Using what you've learned from the readings and recorded lesson below, create a mind map of your learning. Make sure your mind map meets the criteria described below.
So as Vector was giving you those instructions, I was thinking about how we might break this down a little bit. What we see first is that we have a video lesson. In this video lesson, Mrs. Schranz and Ms. Betchika will give you some learning. Now, this lesson is important if you want to be successful. So I do ask that you pay very close attention to what they're talking about and see what strategies they use when they're reading. They will be reading a text that is actually right below the video on the page. And so you have that text available. It is important that you watch the video on the page so you can follow along in that text. If you don't, you're most likely going to be confused, and that will create some difficulties for you. After you've been through this video and you've done that learning with Mrs. Schranz and Ms. Betchika, you're ready to start using that strategy on your own. And so this is where we get into the challenge. For second and third, you will be doing some learning about exploration through one of the three blend space options. There are three options, you're picking one. Each option focuses on a different part of the Americas that were explored by Europeans. There is exploring the Arctic, which would be the extreme North American place in the Americas. There would be exploring North America, which we might consider mostly what we would call the United States today, maybe parts of Canada. And then we have exploring Mesoamerica and South America, which would be what we would call Central America and South America. It is important that you talk with your survivor group so that we can make sure that each group has someone that has read each of those three texts. It will be important as you get to that survivor challenge later in the unit. Third, you're going to complete your challenge task. To do that, you'll be creating a mind map. Now, we've talked about what a mind map is before. A mind map is a way to represent what we're thinking and learning. And so as we get ready to do that, We're going to need to focus on what are we trying to find out? What are we looking to notice as we explore the Arctic, explore North America, or explore Mesoamerica and South America? And so these questions become very important as we get ready to complete this challenge. For example, the first question says, how did exploration change society? Through these texts and video resources, you're going to get an idea about how exploration did change society. That needs to be represented in your mind map. How did roles of individuals and groups, so how did individuals and groups affect change? So how did people and groups of people create change? It says, and the status quo. We've talked about the status quo already, but we haven't really called it the status quo. We've called it continuity. It's where things just sort of stay the same. So how do individuals or group affect whether things change or whether they stay the same? How did the environment affect humans? In our mind map, we're going to want to address those environmental challenges that people faced as they entered into the age of exploration. How did access to and availability of resources affect individuals and groups? And finally, what influenced individual and group decisions? What made people do what they chose to do? These must be addressed in your mind map in order to meet our targets. Over here on the right side, you'll see that we have some success criteria. This we can consider like the rubric for this challenge. To hit that meets target level, we want to make sure that we're hitting all of these. A theme or a main idea needs to be identified. Overall, what is it that you can take away from the reading and viewing that you did? Were you able to answer these questions? Did it lead to some of those questions that we've talked about before, involving conflict, perspective, and change? Important ideas need to support that main idea. Information is gathered from multiple sources, not just the first one. It needs to show that understanding, that you understand the topic. And above all else, we want to make sure that we're communicating information clearly. Because if our audience can't understand our mind map, then what is the point? So in review, as we begin this challenge, we're going to want to think about conflict, perspective, and change as we read to notice. We will start with Ms. Betchika and Mrs. Schrantz with that video and that text. They will be determining importance and noticing things in text, which should set you up for that second and third part of this challenge. If you have any questions, there are plenty of teachers around that will be willing and able to help you. As you prepare for that mind map, you'll want to know that you get to choose how to best represent your thinking. You may use paper, you may use digital resources, you may use your devices, but your thinking must address these questions and this success criteria. It is time to read to notice as you examine exploration.